Well, a very good morning to you, Naledi, and the viewers. Indeed, it's a very important visit, this one. When it was announced, everyone was quite impressed and excited because we had just had the new king in UK, and then South Africa was going to have the first bite at visiting the Buckingham Palace. But of course, with me is the man in the know, the High Commissioner here, Antony Phillipson, who will shed a more light in terms of what will be happening in terms of relations, and of course why the King decided to invite our President as the first guest. High Commissioner, this is an important visit, as we've been speaking off camera. Why did the King invite President Ramaphosa as the first President to the Buckingham Palace?
Well, thank you very much indeed for giving me the chance to talk about it. As you say, it's a hugely important, it's a very exciting moment as well, I think, for both countries, and there's been a huge amount of work going into preparing this visit. State visits are the highest level of engagement that we can offer another country. As you say, they are hosted by the monarch, and on this occasion it will be His Majesty King Charles III and the Queen Consort will be hosting this visit, the first one of his reign. It is not the first South African state visit. This will be the fourth since 1994. And there have also been royal visits to South Africa in that time, and I think that reflects the long history, the shared history between our countries, and indeed the modern day friendship and partnership, and that is what lies behind the decision that will be made to invite President Ramaphosa to make this visit to London next week. Very exciting moment.
Yes, absolutely. And I should have indicated earlier that I'm with my colleague, the senior colleague here, Bosichi Mombe, who will also be throwing in a question or two. But in terms of relations, you have said, almost all democratically elected presidents have visited UK. That does speak to historical relations. But there are areas really beyond relations, beyond pomp and ceremony, that have to do with the economic trade between the two countries.
I think what you will see with the state visit next week is, you use the word pomp and ceremony there. There will be a lot of ceremony. There will be a ceremonial welcome for the President on what we call Horse Guards Parade in the centre of London. He will inspect a guard of honour with His Majesty the King. There will be the state banquet on Tuesday evening, hosted by His Majesty the King and the Queen Consort, and the President and the King will both make speeches there. But there will also be moments of real substance. The President will meet the Prime Minister on Wednesday next week for formal talks. They have met briefly in Sharm el-Sheikh at the beginning of last week at the COP27 summit, but this will be a chance to sit down and talk about the whole of our relationship. I can't quite give you all the details yet. It's just a little bit ahead of as we release them, but you will see events that the President will attend, accompanied by other ministers, accompanied, I'm sure, by other members of the royal family, that will tell a story about the economic partnership between our countries, but also partnerships in areas like health, science and innovation, education, research, skills. As the two countries, we work very, very closely together on these topics, looking to deliver inclusive economic growth in both countries, jobs and investment for both countries. And that is the modern day partnership and friendship between South Africa and the UK that we will use the state visit to tell a story about.
Now, in terms of just specific issues, you have said that you can't go into too much detail, but you're talking about the COP meeting that's going on. So we can assume that energy is going to be a focus in terms of this particular state visit. And I'd also like to just find out, one of the things that our President Cyril Ramaphosa, has been asking for is that sanctions be lifted against Zimbabwe. Are those some of the issues that we can expect to get some airing?
So let me take them in turn. I think energy and indeed the energy partnership. So the UK, along with France, Germany, the US and the EU, launched a really, really important partnership with South Africa at the COP in Glasgow last November, called the Just Energy Transition Partnership. And last week in Sharm el-Sheikh, the feature of the meeting between the President and the leaders of those countries, including my Prime Minister, was to launch the Just Energy Transition Investment Plan. It sets out in great detail how South Africa is going to take forward its just energy transition over the next 3 to 5 years, and the role that my country and others will play in that. And I'm sure that will be a strong theme of the visit next week as well, both in terms of the talks between the Prime Minister and the President. Also, I'm sure the President and his accompanying ministers will have the chance to meet their counterparts. We will also be looking to, I think there'll be business-to-business engagement in this area as well, so that's hugely important. On Zimbabwe, I think the meeting between the Prime Minister and the President will be a chance to talk about a range of regional and indeed global security issues. We have a shared ambition in Zimbabwe, which is to see free and fair elections in that country next year, to see greater prosperity, security for the citizens of Zimbabwe. I think that is an utterly shared ambition between the UK and South Africa, and indeed some of our other partners here in Pretoria who we talk a lot to, including other countries and other civil society organisations. In terms of the sanctions, I think we have been very clear that they are very targeted sanctions against a specific number of individuals and I think one company. We will lift them when conditions allow, and that includes action on human rights and indeed ensuring that those elections and the run-up to those elections can be free and fair.
There's been the relationship between the UK and South Africa, although it's been quite solid and it's a long one. We've seen some hurdles, the most recent being the travel restrictions and what happened with the vaccinations last year. Do you think this particular trip will be an opportunity to perhaps foster more trust between the two countries, just in terms of that particular relationship?
So I arrived in South Africa to start my posting in September last year, in the middle of what we called red listing, the international travel restrictions. And then, of course, I was here, and indeed I may have indeed spoken to SABC at the time, almost a year ago today, when Omicron was discovered, and we felt that we needed to put the travel restrictions back in place. And we were able, fortunately, to lift them very quickly, but we are fully aware of the concern that caused, and I think we used the term at the time, the damage that caused. Both in terms of the restrictions on people moving between our countries, which is so important. Huge numbers of people move between our countries either for work, they live in huge numbers living in each other's country. So we understand the concern that caused. I think we explained at the time why we felt we needed to do it. I think, yes, this visit will be a chance to I think reassert that fundamentally there is a strong friendship and partnership between the UK and South Africa. We will be using the visit, as I've touched on, to sort of highlight the areas where we're working on together, but also to launch new partnerships and to take that relationship forward for the benefit of both countries.
Well, thank you very much, High Commissioner. As this is a live broadcast, so we don't have much time there, but we'll be able to continue to engage with you on a number of other questions that we still want to ask. And of course, as you've heard, that was the High Commissioner to South Africa from UK, who was sharing a bit of information of what will transpire when the President visits UK next week.